Today we're going over my radical ideas on how I would change Anime Expo for the better. I'm your brother from another mother, Evil Aniki, and today that's what we're talking about. So, first off, let me just say Anime Expo this year was probably the best year yet, and that's stacking on top of last year, which was also the best year yet. And yeah, that's really like 2 wins in a row is amazing. I will say, you go back a couple years, and even before the pandemic, people would be like, I had so many friends who would just be like, oh, I don't know if I can do another year. These lines are killing me. And yeah, just every year, over and over again, it just gets better and better. And I will say, a lot of, out of all the conventions I go to, Anime Expo is definitely feels the most age appropriate for me. So when I go to Anime Expo, I don't feel like I'm running around with like a bunch of people who are way younger than me. Unlike when I go to, I don't know, maybe like uh, Anime Impulse. Anime Impulse tends to be a lot younger, and but that's besides the point. So let's get into the things that I would change. So first off, the number one thing that I would change is Anime Expo is always on 4th of July weekend, and this is probably my most radical, opinion on this. Is I think we should move it off of the 4th of July weekend. So the number one reason for this is because of how working on a holiday affects the convention. So all of the convention, staff and all of like the restaurants nearby, all of them need to employ people to work on that holiday, and that's going to cost extra money. That's just not needed. You could just move it to like the next weekend, and it wouldn't be that issue. This year, for example, I wanted to go to uh, what is it, Lucky Strike or I don't remember the bowling alley that's there. And I'm gonna be honest, it was closed on the 4th of July. They said they just opened up later. It was supposed to open at 2, and it was like 2:30, and they weren't open. And maybe they opened at 4 because that's usually their start. Besides the point, yeah, that's the first thing I would change is just move it off of 4th of July weekend. Just mainly because in previous years there's been issues where they couldn't get staff to work for the convention or some of the booths. It's just tough to find people to work on 4th of July weekend because if you're not paying them holiday pay, they're not going to want to do it, and it can just be kind of tough to work around that. Now, I'm not saying like there's a lot of benefits to being on that 4th of July weekend, and I'm sure Anime Expo has some sort of contract with the convention center to always be on 4th of July weekend because it's always on 4th of July weekend no matter what. Even if the convention has to end on a Tuesday, they will make it on that 4th of July day happen, and it's just kind of a weird setup. But on top of that, what I would do, the second thing I would do is I would change the dates for Anime Expo. So not only am I saying that you should move it off of the holiday, and this second option, maybe, or this second, controversial opinion, I should say, about Anime Expo, is maybe you don't need to necessarily move it off of the holiday weekend, but maybe you have it extend into the week, or maybe you have it go 2 weekends in a row. And this is just sort of my idea is, maybe you make it longer, and so this year, Artist Alley was packed. Maybe you could, have, you could have more people in Artist Alley, and you could just like there's an A slot and a B slot. So the A slot gets the first 2 days or 3 days, and then the B slot gets the next 3 days, and it would just give more chances for people to take part in the convention if they're trying to be a seller. But also, if they are a seller, that means they could also sell at Anime Expo and then also attend Anime Expo. And I think that's a very distinctive feature is like a lot of the people who would love to attend Anime Expo are selling at Anime Expo, especially in the Artist Alley. And I think that would be a great option. And that would also increase the amount of people that could, attend Anime Expo as well. Because if you have Anime Expo go from, because right now Anime Expo is like a 3.5 day con, because Sunday is like a half day. I know there was that joke about how people were gooning in the bathrooms on Sunday, and that's why they had to close it. That's a joke. It's always closed early on Sunday, and I'm gonna be honest, I hate that it closes early on Sunday. I would love more Anime Expo time, and a lot of other conventions that do weekend conventions on Sunday don't normally close midday like that. Like if you go to Anime Pasadena, Anime Riverside, Anime Impulse, like they all go until about 7 p.m. on Sunday, and it's just kind of a weird scenario where where this happens, and I don't think it needs to happen. I think Anime Expo could easily extend a couple more hours into Sunday, and I know they're probably giving that extra time for people to break down their booths, but like why? Like this is we could work around this. We don't have to work around the convention time. I think if there's enough people willing to pay for tickets and badges and selling and all that jazz and tables, you should be able to afford an extra day for breakdown. I guess I don't know, and I don't think it should take that long. Like I mean, I mean, I know AX is big. But I've never sold at Anime Expo, so I could be completely in the wrong in this. I just feel like it sucks that it closes, and I feel like panels could go on a little bit longer. There could be more cosplay meetups. There could just be more stuff to do on Sunday after the convention, because things just kind of die. Like this year, there was a Shonen Jump pop up, and that was actually over on Sunday, and I didn't realize that, and I tried to go over there and it was like, oh wait, it's closed, and then I just went home. And but it's also the same thing like there was a lot of pop-ups that were just over by Sunday, and it's just come on, like the one time where where everyone at the convention is finally done with the convention, and you have a pop-up next to the convention, and it's just like, oh, sorry, we're closed for today. It's weird. It's weird. You should have a pop-up like that on Sunday for sure. If you're doing a pop-up Anime Expo, make sure you're selling on Sunday because that's probably one of the best days to like get people just to go in and take pictures at least, you know. The next, or the going on to my third radical opinion, luggage checks. So I did see a luggage check this year, but it's just kind of a. I don't think it was actually made for like people to like check in their bags. I think Anime Expo definitely needs to start implementing some type of luggage check service. I've seen this at other conventions to much success where they let, people bring in their backpacks. I mean, think about it this way. You're going to a convention, you've already gone through security, you've already gone through the bag check, and then at that point, it's just like, hey, I need, I don't want to walk around with, a camera bag, or I don't want to walk around with all this merch. I just want to like, spend $5 and block this in a room. And I've seen this done at so many other conventions, and I don't understand why the LA Convention Center can't do this. It seems really, really like easy and practical to do. And yeah, this is something that I think needs to come to Anime Expo because there's got to be like, I mean, this year they had the Peach Pit Art Gallery, and I'm gonna be honest, on Sunday that thing was empty. There was like everything was sold. You could have easily turned that into like a baggage claim. Like if you can have a room for an art gallery, you can have room for a luggage claim. I don't know. Yeah, there's just a lot that can be done to improve on that aspect. And on top of the luggage claim, I would also add in lockers, small lockers. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if I like luggage claim, like luggage checks more, or like if I like lockers better. So when I went to Japan, I did see that there was some lockers at some of their convention centers, and I thought that was really cool, and I would love to see that here in America, especially. I mean, again, if you're already through luggage check, not luggage check, if you're already through security and in bag check, then there's no reason that you shouldn't be allowed to. uh, there's no reason that you shouldn't be allowed to use a locker. And I think that would be really nice because like first of all, a lot of people bring cosplays. It would be really, really practical for cosplayers. Hey, I'm gonna bring some of my extra cosplay pieces and just put them in a locker for the convention overnight. And it's not that hard. Like you can, like, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I get that LA can be, there's a lot of theft in LA and people could be a little scared about that. But you put one security camera on it and it's fine. Like you just have one security guard there, even just standing there. And I think it would just negate like anyone trying to do anything specific, trying to jimmy open a lock or something. And you're just making sure someone's like there trying to shut everything, or even do the key things like they do at Universal, where you can't leave unless you pull out the key and make sure it's locked. I don't know. I just think this would be a great option for people to store stuff at the convention, even for short periods, or just I don't get it. This is something that I feel like is just like an easy win. There's so much room in the hallways. You could just have a bunch of lockers, and you could just make a ton of money. And they're just not doing it, and I don't understand why. Um, Now I think we're on my fourth option here. So I think yeah. So we had the move off of Fourth of July, change it to be like 2 weeks or okay, and then 2 weeks or 1 week long. Just extend the convention time. Number three was the luggage check, and then number four. I'll say number four was the lockers. So I'll say number five. This is a big one. The vending machines. For the love of me, don't understand why they can't just have people come in at night and refill the vending machines. The vending machines are like $4 for a can of soda, for like the tall boys, uh, and then for if you go to one of the food vendors at the convention, like inside the convention center, not I'm not talking about the food trucks, I'm talking about the people who work inside the convention center. um their sodas, they're selling like the regular cans of soda for what, like uh for like $7, $8. So you're paying double the price just to purchase from a human, and it's just like, come on, like I think the vending machines are great. In fact, I think they need to add more vending machines. I think Anime Expo should specifically rent out more vending machines and just litter the halls with vending machines. And because there's like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I assume the convention center must have some sort of contract where they say you have to, because not every convention uses their food services, but I do believe the LA Convention Center does push their food services on every convention, and I'm just not a fan of it. The LA Convention Center can suck a nut in this case. I think they are, scamming the people, and it really, even then, I think Anime Expo could come in and be like, hey, we don't mind if you have people selling drinks at the convention, but you need to refill the vending machines every single night because that is an issue. People need to stay hydrated. People need their water. People need something to drink. People need snacks, and they're not gonna like and because think of it this way: the more time people are spending away from the more time people are spending trying to eat food and go drink, that's the time they're spending away from like shopping. That's the time they're spending away from doing all this other thing. And if you just refilled your vending machines, it wouldn't be an issue. I did not go to the AI vending machine room this year. I don't know if they streamlined that at all. I'm going to be honest. I was not a fan of it last year. That was probably one of the biggest downsides of the convention last year. So yeah, I don't know how that went. It didn't. I walked by it once maybe, and I didn't really see a line in there. So maybe it's a little bit better, but I wasn't. I don't know. I don't know how that one did. So I have no opinion on that one. Going into what is this, the fifth or sixth one? The Novo. The Novo needs to be fixed so badly. The line for the Novo was probably one of the biggest downsides for a lot of convention goers. Personally, when I went out to lunch one day, and the line for the Novo was so big and thick, and like it was just hard to get around, and it was just bulky, and like it was a bad time to just try and get through that. And like it's like I'm out here getting lunch, over wherever, and I'm walking back, and it's just like the line is like massive, and it's taking up the whole sidewalk, and it's just, I don't know what they were thinking with that one. I think that was a bad idea. In the security that were doing the Novo stuff, they were kind of on one as well. So I went to the bowling alley for lunch one day. As I advised you all should do, go to the bowling alley. There was no, like, literally when I went there on, I think it might have been Saturday. I go up, and me and my friends are in there, and they're just like, "Oh, you're the first people to come in here all day," and it's because the staff for the Novo Theater were telling people, "Hey, you can't come up here because unless like basically they weren't letting anyone go up there. They were like anyone who tried to go up the stairs to where the Novo entrance is, but also where the bowling alley is, were basically told you can't come up here. But if you told them you're going to the bowling alley, you're allowed to go up to the bowling alley. So it's just a weird scenario where it's just like unless you know the bowling alley is up there, they're not going to let you to go up to the bowling alley. I mean, there's a giant sign for the bowling alley, but how are you going to know if it's open or not? Like it's bowling alley, like bowling alleys tend to be really dark and like not really full of windows, especially since there's a bar alongside the wall of the. Yeah, there's just no windows, so you can't even see into the bowling alley from outside. Um, Now, what are some of the other things I would change? Well, first of all, I would add in more seats. I think more seats could always be appropriate. More bathrooms. Last year I'm pretty sure they had some porta potties installed, and this year I don't know if they had them there. I didn't pay attention. Uh, they weren't on the maps this year, so I'm gonna assume that they weren't there. But I would say, maybe having a few porta potties isn't such a bad idea. I do think a row of okay. I think having like two porta potties just makes it so people don't want to use them. But if you have like a row of porta potties, people might use them. But I also think people at Anime Expo, if given the option between pooping in the convention center and pooping in a porta potty, they're probably going to want to poop in the convention center because they're not going to want to poop in a porta potty because porta potties are disgusting. But I don't see why they can't get nicer porta potties out or I don't even know. Like maybe there's like a bathroom on wheels or something that they could rent. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that one. That's just my 2 cents on that. Um, Now let's see. I think that's most of everything that I've had complaints with for Anime Expo. Mainly the date is the big one. That's my big radical idea. Is how I would change things. Was just either make it 2 weekends in a row or make it a full week. So it goes from like Monday to Sunday, or make it like Friday to Sunday and then Friday to Sunday. So you have a 3 day and then you have another 3 day, or you have that full 7 day convention. I'm not too sure which one I would like more. I think the full 7 day convention is more practical if you're going to shut things down. So in that case, I also don't think like if you're doing this double week, I'm going to hang on this one for a bit. If you're doing that double convention, weekend thing, like it's I think the biggest reason for why AX Crossing is a thing is because of how many people want to go to Anime Expo, and I think you could spread that out if you add more days to Anime Expo. I think you could spread that out, and less people would be in demand for going to the convention because they could go on a different day. They could go on Tuesday, like and I also think this would also add to like, oh, I want to go see a premiere, but I can't go on this day, so I can just go to a second screening of it, and I think that would add a lot. Anime Expo used to have a ton of screenings after the fact, and there was a few screenings this year. Last year there was like almost no like secondary screenings, and I think they should just have like before previous years they used to have just like the JW and the whole Marriott. They just used to do screenings in there like nonstop, where you could just go in there and watch Crunchyroll premieres and also, but it was all in there, so you could just stay in there all day and watch anime if you wanted to. And I think Anime Expo could use some of that because honestly, I don't really get to enjoy that as much when I'm at a convention because I'm trying to run around and doing everything. But if you added like if you turned Anime Expo into like a 7 day con or a 2 weekend con, I could maybe like warrant like chilling and just resting and hanging out. I think that's one of the biggest downsides to Anime Expo in general is uh, the time constraint with the 3.5 day weekend. They just really like try to bottle everything up as much as possible, but then they try to like compress it into this time slot, but then they're also like, oh, but there's so many people, so we need to make AX Crossing. And it's like, no, you could just make the convention longer. Like that's the easy answer. Like, don't why are we jumping through hoops? Why are we cramming ourselves into a can of sardines? I get there's probably a higher profit margin on trying to fit more people into like a weekend, but I think we're at the point where we could just, maybe we could just extend the convention by a day or two. And this is not out of the norm. New York Comic Con is now a 5 day convention. I will say the first day is they did this last year. I don't know if they're gonna do it this year, but last year they implemented an influencer, creator, industry type of day. So it's like, I think the industry, the influencer was a smaller part of it, but it was mainly so like people who were in Artist Alley for their convention could also go and schmooze with some of like the actual booths in the halls, so they're not just they're selling and they can like network. And I think that's the biggest downside to like the modern convention is that like for a convention like Anime Expo, networking is so much harder on a professional level. Like if it's so different than how it used to be, and it's there's just not a lot of time. And yeah, I think adding like a networking option for conventions would do a lot for the industry as well. You'd get a lot more people schmoozing, you'd get a lot more people, doing business with each other, and then making plans for the next Anime Expo. And I do think Anime Expo has, grown. It's constantly growing and it's constantly getting better. But I also think it's kind of like hindering itself in some ways because it's not doing some of these things. Now, no, let's see. Is there anything else that I think could be improved? I think that's about it. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments if you liked any of these ideas, or if you think they're all crazy and I'm dumb. I think some of them are a little out there, but I'm not a complete hater. I'm open to change. I'm open to anything that could make this convention better. But be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.